Hi everyone, my name is James Warrior. I'm an actor and I'm also a biker, and that's why I'm making this little video clip today, because I've got a motorcycle for sale. While I'm talking to you now, I'll show photographs of the bike as well so that you know what I'm talking about as best as I can describe it. The bike itself is a BMW R 1150 RT. I bought it from new in 2003 and it had 1.8 miles on the clock, pre-delivery inspection mileage, I've looked after it really well during that period of time, although it is 19 years old now and sure, it's showing signs of wear. But not grotesquely, and nothing that can't be easily put right if you've got the skill and the time and you can be bothered to do it. There's not a big deal about it. Why am I selling it? I'm 76 years old now, and quite honestly, the bike is getting too heavy for me. I don't mean it's too heavy when I'm riding it. I think anybody who's ever ridden one will tell you it handles really beautifully. It's not a sports bike, and you'd never describe it as flickable, but it handles well and smoothly. There's nothing better, in my opinion, than going around a long sweeping bend and really giving it some lean one way or the other. And I think most people would agree that it does handle well, given that it is a touring bike and not a sports bike. What else can I tell you about it? Wait a minute, I've got some notes in front of me, so I glance down every now and again. Oh yes, I said, why am I selling it? It is getting too heavy for me. Not, as I say, not when I'm riding it, but when I'm parking it. I mean, there was a time I just used to park the bike. I'd park it wherever I felt like it. When I wanted to get back on it again, I'd pull it out from the roadside. It didn't seem like a problem at all. But I've got arthritis in just about every joint in my bloody crumbling body at the moment. And I don't need a big heavy touring bike anymore. I mean, now when I park the bike, I make sure that I park it very carefully. I think, where am I going to park this now? And I park it in backwards so that I can ride out of wherever I've left it. And it is too big and I don't need it. The other thing is, I had a really, really good friend who I'm very sorry to say died about a year ago now. His name was Ben Roberts. He was an actor as well. For many years he played, his character name was Chief Inspector Conway in The Bill. And anyway, he was my biking mate. He had a bike as well. He had a big Honda Pan-European, and we used to go off all over the place together, behaving like silly buggers really, breaking the speed limits, riding quite fast where really and truly perhaps we shouldn't have been. We would go on numerous occasions. We went over to France and toured around, drove hundreds and hundreds of miles, stopped, got absolutely smashed, then recovered from our, stayed somewhere, and then recovered from our hangovers. And then a couple of days later, we'd be off behaving like geriatric children again. But he's gone, and I haven't got an accomplice to do long tours with, so I don't really need the bike anymore. But you're going to have to drag me kicking and screaming from the bike, because I'm going to get a smaller one. I'm not going to give up motorcycling, but I don't need a big boy anymore. So that's the two reasons why I'm selling it. Heavy, and I don't need it. The other things, what can I tell you about it now? I've broken this little speech, if you like, into three sections. I call them the good, the bad and the ugly. Right, let's go on with the good bit first. Good bit is the total mileage is 48,000 miles. I've got all the MOTs ever since it needed one. And its current MOT, by the way, expires at the beginning of April 2023. So there's 10 months of the MOT left on it. And so that's a start. I've got all the keys that it came with. It's got a full set of luggage. Some of the photographs that I'll show you during the course of this, I've got the luggage off, and on some of the photographs, the luggage is on. It's got a brand new starter motor, and it's got a brand new front tyre. In fact, the front tyre is so new, it's still got those, those little feathery bits of rubber that you get on a brand new tyre. They're still on it. I've only ridden it a few miles since the new tyre was put on. So I'm still riding it very carefully, because you know what it's like. New tyres, they don't grip as well. They need to be run in, bedded in, if you like. So at the moment, my front tyre is just so unspeakably new that I'm riding it very, very carefully. It's got heated grips, which is wonderful. It's the only bike I've ever had with heated grips. And if I ever buy, well, I will. I say if I ever buy another bike, I'm going to buy another bike, but it'll be much smaller, probably about a 500cc job of something like that. But it's got to have heated grips. I'm not ever going to have a bike without heated grips again because they're worth their weight in gold. What else can I tell you about it? The brakes, I've had those recently serviced. It's had new pads, new pistons, and obviously new brake fluid in. Now, on the subject of brakes, when I bought the bike, it had ABS. It hasn't got ABS anymore. And I got quite cross about this at the time that it happened because a warning light came up on my dashboard and it said fault with the ABS. And then when I looked in the handbook, it said that you're now, as long as this light stays on, deal with it straight away because the only braking you will have is what they call residual braking. Well, I ain't going to arse around with that. I want proper brakes. I mean, for goodness sake, if you're riding fast and you need to stop, you need good brakes. So anyway, I took it into Roy Pidcock's where I'd bought it. And I did feel pissed off at this, actually, because I went in and I said, look, my warning lights come on. What can I do about it? And they said, oh, well, that's easy enough to deal with. You need a new ABS module. Oh, I said, okay, well, thinking, yes, let's get that done. I said, how much would that be? And then they said, well, the module itself is £2,500. And then we would have to fit it, of course, and we charge, it takes an hour to take the fairing off and another hour to put it back on. And then there's this to be done and there's that to be done and new brake fluid to be put into it. And anyway, when they totted it all up, because they were charging something silly like £100 an hour for the labour, I thought, hang about, it came to something over £3,000 just to have a new ABS module in it. Then I said to them, well, supposing instead of asking you to fix it for me, supposing I said, how much money would you give me as a part exchange if I were to upgrade my bike to the later version of this, the 1200cc version? And they said, oh, yes, we can tell you that straight away, Mr. Warrior. It's we'd be able to give you £2,000. And my jaw dropped. And I said, so you are suggesting to me that I should pay you more than £3,000 to repair my ABS module, but on a bike that in your estimation is only worth £2,000? And they said, well, yes, really. And I said, well, you can stick it up your arse. I was in a real temper. So I walked out. That's taking the piss. So I walked out. Then I took it to a friend. I've got a friend who's a really good motorcycle mechanic himself. He's not a BMW main agent, but he's a bloody good mechanic. And I told him, I said, I'm not paying £2,500. I said, I'll just have conventional braking again. Because in fact, in the 19 years that I've used it, I've never, ever actually had to brake so firmly, so anxiously, so hugely that the ABS has ever had to cut in anyway. So I thought, I don't really need this. So I've had the ABS module taken out. It's got good brakes on it, but they're conventional. No ABS anymore. So that's part of the, I suppose you'd call that part of the bad, the good, the bad and the ugly. That's part of the bad. What else can I tell you about it? Heated grips have to, the trick screen. It's got a wonderful trick screen. Left handlebar, rocker switch, screen in front of you on the front of the fairing. You press it at the top and it goes and up comes the screen. You press it at the bottom and down goes the screen. Now that might not sound like a big deal, but it is amazing. When you're hot and you need air on you and you want air on you, you drop the screen. When you're cold and you want it thrown over your head, you raise the screen. But when it really comes into its own is when it's raining. Because provided you're moving, if you're doing, at least say 30, 40 miles an hour and Of course you are, unless you have the misfortune to be in a really heavy traffic jam. But as long as you're moving, do you remember the days where with no screen and it's raining and your visor gets covered in water and you're constantly going like this on the front of your visor, like this, every half a minute or so you can see where you're going. You're wiping it off with your glove. Well, after about 10 minutes, your gloves become waterlogged, your hands become cold, because you haven't got heated grips either. Your hands become cold, everything is miserable. You wish you'd never bought a bloody motorbike in the first place and you'd never got hooked on it. Horrible. Doesn't happen anymore. You stay dry because you just adjust the screen to exactly the right height. The raindrops fall on your visor and the wind just goes whoosh, and it's like opening a curtain. It's absolutely wonderful. So that's all part of the good. Okay, what else can I tell you? It's got 6 gears. Now, I've heard a lot of people complaining about the 6th gear. They say it's not a strong gear. You haven't got a lot of torque when you use fuck off. I'll start again on that one. What else can I tell you? It's got 6 gears. Now, I've heard a lot of people complaining about the 6th gear on this bike because they say it isn't a strong gear. And, well, in a way they're right. But I don't think that's the right way to think about it. It isn't a strong gear, but it's strong enough, and I'll tell you why. The first 5 gears that it's got, if you give it some serious right hand in any of those first 5 gears, at pretty much whatever revs you're doing, as long as you're above 3,000 revs, let's say, you've got an enormous amount of torque and an enormous amount of pull. In 6th gear, you haven't. But I don't think that's anything to complain about because your first 5 gears are powerful gears. Your 6th gear basically is overdrive, and it's absolutely wonderful. I mean, once you're doing 80 plus miles an hour anyway, if you go into 6th gear, your rev counter drops by 1,000 RPM, and you can cruise at wonderful, quite high speeds and not use a ton of petrol. And with petrol prices as they are now, that's not a bad gear. Anyway, that's that bit. What else can I tell you? Oh yes, right. We're on the bad now. Good, bad, ugly. We're on the bad. Some of the screws which secure the fairing in place have got, the screws themselves haven't got lost, but the threaded receivers that they screw into, sometimes they've broken. Is that right? Yeah, they've broken, or they've bounced off, hit the floor, shot off in a direction where you can't see them, fallen down a crack, and you think, oh, I'll never get that bugger back. Anyway, there's a few of those screws, and not many, I'm talking about 2, 3, 4 maybe, on the entire bike, where I've replaced those screws with tiny little nuts and bolts. They're a little bit more fiddly to get on and off when you're adjusting the fairing, but then it's not a disaster area, and it's something that if you're a reasonably practical person you can deal with anyway. Look at my notes again. What have I got here? Now then, right. I think I'm down to ugly now. Good, bad and ugly. Ugly. Nothing really. It's not perfect. It's 19 years old. Of course, there are cosmetic scratches and bumps on it. I don't know what to tell you really. I have dropped it. I've dropped it twice because of me arthritic, crippled old fingers. Hate them. But, and I don't mean dropped it at high speed and let it slide down the road. I mean, I've dropped it. And so there's slight cosmetic scratching on the rocker covers on both sides. I've dropped it twice, once on the left-hand side, once on the right. So there's a bit of scratching, but if you get down on your hands and knees, if you've still got knees that bend, but you get down on your hands and knees, a little bit of sanding and a little bit of polishing, and the scratches would go. That's about it, really, I think, for the ugly. I don't know what else to tell you. I like the bike. It's got wear and tear. It's 19 years old. But with a little bit of effort on your behalf, a little bit of tender loving care, you can bring it back to a wonderful, wonderful touring bike. The engine's good. I've always used the best oil. There's nothing much else I can tell you, except that if you want to contact me, I'm not sure that I've mentioned this already, so if I haven't, then you must have been listening for quite a long time, because I live in a village called Kegworth, which is about, roughly speaking, about a mile off junction 24 of the M1. That's where I am. So if you want to come round and have a look at it, that's cool. You'll find my telephone number in the description underneath this. And the only one thing that I would say is, please don't come around and say to me, oh, I don't know, £1,000 is a bit much for this, and, kick the tyres and do all that kind of stuff and say, oh, I'll offer you £800 for it. My response to that would be, because I'm not selling this. I'm not selling the bike because I'm desperate for money or anything. I'm selling it because I need to sell it, because it's bigger than I need anymore. I don't want it. Much as I love the bike, and I have loved it over many, many years, it's not the bike I want or need now. I'm going to go for something quite a bit smaller. So that's it, really. If you want to come around and have a look, please do. And as soon as anybody says, yes, I will have that bike, then I will take this advert off YouTube and Twitter and so on. So I don't want people to be wasting their time thinking, oh yeah, I'll go and have a look at that when it's already sold. So I'll do that, and I'll inform everyone straight away. So that's about it, really. Obviously, anybody who's listened to this little video clip until now is keen on motorbikes, and so I wish you all well. Enjoy your riding, ride safe, have a great time, and if you want to buy my motorbike, you know how to get hold of me. So all the best now. Goodbye. Ride safe.